Good afternoon. This is Professor Schmidt. Um, Checking in with you. Wanted to share a couple of things very quickly. I won't take too much of your time here, but I really enjoy reading your postings, and I very much enjoyed learning about you, seeing who you are, interesting things that you both have done before and are planning to do in the future. And I wanted to ask you to please go in twice a week, 3 times a week, if possible. Post discussions, but also go and counter post and share the other people's discussions. So if somebody has something posted, click on it, read it real quickly, and post your response. The problem with distance learning is that we're not there twice a week for 2 or 3 hours or whatever the time frame would be in a seminar, and therefore are forced naturally to engage with each other. And so we do this virtually. We do it by way of the discussion postings. I have stayed away from forcing people to have live chats, for example. One of the reasons is that you're so busy, you're doing so many different things. Some of you are on the West Coast, some of you are even overseas at any given moment. I had a student who was in the Navy and suddenly got deployed to sea and was essentially in a information quarantine, no internet access, no email, no access at all for those 2 weeks because it was a national security mission. And so I've instead said, let's do it asynchronously and let's talk, but not in real time. And I'd hate to change that. I know that would be easier on you if I said you've got to be there, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever the days would be at a certain hour, and we are going to share some information. But if I have to, I'll do it in the future. But I'd like to see if this continues to work. So please post. Please keep up with the stuff. Also the quizzes. Make sure that you do the assignments and go take the quizzes. Of course, the research paper outlines as well. One of the things that helped me a great deal when I was in graduate school. As you can imagine, I was all over the place, very busy. I was working as a research assistant for a professor with a huge project and had a whole bunch of classes. And so time management became a real challenge for me. I wasn't very good at it. And then I sat down, made out an actual calendar, a schedule. And on a certain day, at a certain hour, I would do, the international affairs class, assignments, and so on. And I think it would be helpful if you did that as well. If you can put down on a calendar what day and what hour you're going to go in, log in, and post a discussion, that would be, I think, kind of an external control mechanism for you. The other thing is that I periodically send you some material. Please don't let it confuse or annoy you. Very often what I'm sending you is just what we would do in a class, where the student would bring in a newspaper clipping and say, look, Professor Schmidt, this is very interesting. Here's an article, for example, from the New York Times. The article says, New York is lagging as sea and risks rise. The 520-mile coast and the subway system of New York are seen as vulnerable. I'm going to send you this article because this obviously is an enormous concern. We have some material in there, of course, on it, but this is another alarm that says that, in fact, cities like New York, which are very close to sea level, in some cases only a foot or so above it, are very vulnerable. And the flood zone around New York and Staten Island is continuously changing. In some cases, it's expanding and enlarging. I think you can see in this picture some red areas and brown areas. You'll see those better when I send you the piece, that are considered to be 100-year flood zones, in other words, target areas. And it's growing. There are more areas that are now highly vulnerable. And so from a policy perspective, of course, this is very interesting. I plan to share this and specifically assign it in the coastal futurology seminar, because planners and governments, nonprofits are going to have to sit down and really take seriously some of these things, specifically climate change, global warming, sea level rises. And I remind you that it makes no difference whether these are caused by human activity, by fossil fuels, or whether they're a natural cycle. Once the water is around your ankle in the middle of Manhattan and Times Square, I doubt if you're going to argue and say, well, yeah, you know, it's around my ankle and the city's underwater, but it's not really caused by human beings. It's caused by a regular cycle that happens every 500 or 1,000 years, and so you shouldn't be blaming human activity. You know, it's, if it happens, we have to prepare for it and have to deal with it. The only way to deal with it is through policy initiatives, and people like yourselves and like myself are going to be responsible essentially for stimulating the discussion and for coming up with ideas. So number one, please post, please go and post more, and your ideas are very interesting. Set up a calendar for yourself so that you have a certain day when you do these things, when you're in there. And when I send you stuff, I'm not overburdening you. I'm sending you current events that fit into our class, just the way we would do if we were sitting around a table and someone would come in and say, I just saw this on the news, or here's something that I just found in an article. All right. See you on the internet.